All right. Okay, so we're starting with Breshit, Genesis 37, verse 1. And Yaakov dwelt in the land of his father's sojournings, in the land of Canaan. This is, oh, I better turn that off. I'm getting an echo. This is the genealogy of Yaakov. Yosef, being 17 years old, was feeding the flock with his brothers, and the young man was with sons of Bilhah and the sons of Zilpah, his father's wife. And Yosef brought an evil report of them to his father. And Yisrael loved Yosef more than all his children because he was the son of his old age. And he made him a long robe. But when his brothers saw that their father loved him more than all his brothers, they hated him and were not able to speak peaceably to him. And Yosef dreamed a dream and told it to his brothers, so they hated him even more. Okay, so we've set the stage. His brothers, Joseph's brothers, already don't like him. Okay, next reader from 6 to the end of.
He said to them, Listen to this dream I had. We were binding sheaves of grain out in the field, and suddenly my sheaf rose and stood upright, while your sheaves scattered around mine and bowed down to it. His brothers said to him, Do you intend to reign over us? Will you actually rule? And they hated him all the more because of his dream and what he had said. Then he had another dream, and he told it to his brothers. Listen, he said, I had another dream. And this time the sun and the moon and 11 stars were bowing down to me. And he told his father as well as his brothers. His father rebuked him and said, What is the dream you had? Will your mother and your brothers actually come and bow down to the ground before you?
Okay, so in ancient times, biblical times, of course, um, people put a lot of trust in dreams, and these were messages from the Almighty. And so they understood the symbolism of dreams, and to this day, we still use the same symbolism if we're going by biblical interpretation. Now, you've gone to the supermarket and you've seen right at the checkout these little books, right next to the crock pot recipes and the horoscope. Right smack dab in the middle, you will see dream interpretation. These are secular. They're not. They're really far out there, and I don't put any trust in those. But I put trust in biblical interpretation. Where does biblical interpretation come from? The Bible. Dreams, you read a lot of different prophets receiving dreams. Different people, simple people like Joseph, the husband of Miriam, who is the mother of Yeshua. Um, he had a dream. And all these different interpretations, you see them sprinkled throughout Scripture, so you can understand what they mean. So here, the father, bless you, the father and the mother of Yosef understand that at this dream, he sees the sun representing the father and the moon representing the mother and all the stars representing his brothers. And so they automatically understood. Nowadays, people, you know, they guess at what things mean. And but dreams are one of the ways that Yahweh speaks to us in His Word, He speaks to us through the prophetic, uttered by whomever He's speaking to. Sometimes you'll hear Him um, audibly, but most of the time it's in dreams. Okay, um, so far he's had two dreams. The first one, sheaves his sheaves stood up, and all their sheaves bowed down to his than the sun, moon, and stars. Okay, so let's go on. Um, so already he has not scored any points with his brothers and now his mother and father. Okay, so 11 to the end of 50.
Joseph's brothers were envious of Joseph. His father kept the words of Joseph in his mind, wondering about their meaning. Then his brothers went to the pasture their father's flock near Shechem.
Mhm. Just
Israel-
checking him out.
Checking out.
Yep.
Israel
Mhm.
said to Joseph, "Are not your brothers pasture in the flock? Come, and I will send you to them." And he said, "Here I am, ready to obey." Then Jacob said to him, "Please go and see whether everything is all right with your brothers and all right with the flock. Then bring word back to me." So he sent him from the Hebron valley, and he went to Shechem. Continue.
One more.
Okay. Now a certain man found Joseph and saw that he was wandering around and had lost in the field. So the man asked him, "What?"
Okay, so kind of wonder who is that guy? All right. So he's gone out. Check. He's gonna check him out. uh, check out what his brothers are up to. He's kind of the little brother that squeals on the older brothers. Yeah, and he's a teenager. He's 17, so he's kind of full of himself, and especially since he's a favorite of his father. Okay, so next reader, let's start from 16 and go to the end of 20.
I'm looking for my brothers, he answered. Tell me, please, where are they pasturing the sheep? The man said, They've left here because I heard them say, Let's go to Dothan. Joseph went after his brothers and found them in Dothan. They spotted him in the distance, and before he had arrived where they were, they had already plotted to kill him. They said to each other, Look, this dreamer is coming. So come now, let's kill him and throw him into one of these water cisterns here. Then we'll say some wild animal devoured him. We'll see then what comes of his dream.
Wow, that's kind of extreme. I mean, you can hate your or have a dislike for your brother or sisters, but to actually plan to kill him, um,
Like,
yeah, they're ganging up on him, yeah. And so they want to kill him and throw his body into a water cistern. Well, that'll spoil the water. So, I mean, really, they're not in their right minds, evidently, because water is a big deal in the desert. And so if they ruin the cistern, then they're not only taking the life of their baby brother, they potentially will be taking the lives of other people that drink infected water. So, okay. So wicked, wicked all the way. All right, next. But Reuben heard and rescued him from their hands and said, Let us not take his life. And Reuben said to them, Shed no blood. Throw him into this pit which is in the wilderness, and do not lay a hand on him, in order to rescue him out of their hands and bring him back to his father. So it came to be, when Joseph had come to his brothers, that they stripped Joseph of his robe, the long robe which was on him. And they took him and threw him into the pit, and the pit was empty. There was no water in it. And they sat down to eat a meal. And they lifted their eyes and looked and saw a company of Ishmaelites come from Gilad with their camels, bearing spices and balm and myrrh, going to take them down to Mizraim. Okay, so good thing Reuben decided to put a stop to murder. So he saved his brother's life. And even though he didn't exactly call Joseph his favorite brother, he said, let's put him in a pit, and with the intention in his mind to rescue him later.
My version is
Oh, okay, good.
that.
All right. So the pit was empty, so he wasn't going to drown. He wasn't going to spoil any water. Um, and then after this, they decided, well, let's have some lunch. Let's have something to eat, you know. Yeah, tossing your brother in a well is hungry work. Okay, so then they looked and they saw a company of Ishmaelites, Arabs, Arab traders coming from Gilad with their camels, they had spices and balm and myrrh and other goodies, and they were going to take them down to Egypt. That's right. Okay, next reader, 26 to the end of 30.
I was just gonna say,
Mhm.
you know, I like the phrase that Joyce Meyer uses, that offense is the tool that the enemy uses to rob you of your God-given destiny.
Mm,
And so here, these brothers are offended by him.
yeah.
And if they had killed him,
Mm, yeah,
he would not have been rescued later on by
right.
Joseph and
That's
the
true.
family.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
they could have cut off their own God-given destiny.
Yeah. Cut off their nose to spite their face.
Okay, 26
Mhm.
to 32. Did you say?
30. End of 30.
Judah said to his brother, what will we gain if we kill our brother and cover up his blood? Come, let's sell him to the Ishmaelites and not lay our hands on him. After all, he is our brother, our own flesh and blood. His brothers agreed. So when the Midianite merchants came by, his brothers pulled Joseph up out of the cistern and sold him for 20 shekels of silver, who took him to Egypt. Then Reuben returned to the city and saw that Joseph was in his clothes. He went back to his brothers and said, the boy isn't there. Where can I turn now?
Okay, so he's in mourning. That's a sign of mourning in Hebraic culture is to tear your clothes, usually right at the neck. Well, so it's a sign of mourning. It's a sign of despair. Um, when Yeshua came before priests and they were judging him, and at what he was saying, then the high priest tore his garment because he was so um, just
Right?
enraged. Yeah, enraged and all kinds of emotions. And in a way, it was mourning too. You know, how can somebody say something? Okay. All right. Next reader, 31 to the end of the chapter.
Then they took Joseph's tunic, slaughtered a male goat, and dipped the tunic in blood. And they brought the multicolored tunic to their father, saying, we have found this. Please examine it and decide whether or not it is your son's tunic. He recognized it and said, it is my son's tunic. A wild animal has devoured him. Joseph is without doubt torn to pieces. Jacob tore his clothes in grief, put on a sackcloth and mourned many days for his son. And all his sons and daughters attempted to console him, refused to be comforted, and said, I will go down to
Sheol.
Sheol,
Yeah.
place of the dead, and mourn for my son. His father wept for him. Meanwhile, in Egypt, the Midianites sold Joseph as a slave to Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh and the captain of the royal guard.
Okay. Now, with Yaakov's age, he could have had a heart attack. I mean, that could have been another consequence of the evil that Joseph's brothers had done. So they must have, I'm sure they noticed that. I'm sure they were saying the big oops in their minds. Oh, what have we done? Okay, so He has gone off to Mitzrayim, to Egypt. Okay, next reader. We're starting at Genesis 38, verses 1 through the end of 5.
It was at this time that Yehuda went off from his brothers and settled near a man named Hirah, who was an Adullam. There Yehuda saw one of the daughters of a certain Canaanite, whose name was Shua, and he took her and slept with her. She conceived and had a son, whom he named
That was weird. Named his name was Yeah.
She conceived again and had a son, and she called him Onan. Then she conceived yet again and had a son, whom she called Shelah. He was in conceived when she gave birth to him.
Okay. So, Yehuda, he left the brothers, and found this woman, the daughter of a Canaanite, and had 3 children with her. Okay, the plot thickens. All right. And Yehuda took a wife for his firstborn, and her name was Tamar. But Yehuda's firstborn, was evil in the sight of Yahweh, and Yahweh took his life. And Yehuda said to Onan, "Go into your brother's wife and marry her, and raise up an heir to your brother." And Onan knew that the offspring would not be his. And it came to be, when he went into his brother's wife, that he spilled on the ground, lest he should give offspring to his brother. But what he did displeased Yahweh, so he took his life too. So two of the brothers Yahweh killed, because they did evil in his sight. And this was a levirate marriage that Onan had refused to fulfill. It was incumbent on the brother of a dead brother to, if the wife of that dead brother did not have any children, especially did not have any sons, he was to give her a child in the name of the dead brother, so that his name would not be blotted up, so the family line would continue. Okay, starting at 11 and to the end of 15.
Judah then said to his daughter-in-law Tamar, "Live as a widow in your father's house until my son Shelah grows up," for he thought he may die too, just like others, you think? So Tamar went to live with in her father's house. After a long time, Judah's daughter of Shua died. When Judah had recovered his grief, he went to Timnah to the men who were shearing his sheep, and his friend Hira, the Adullamite, went. Then Tamar was told, "Your father-in-law is on his way to Timnah to shear his sheep." She took off her widow's clothes, clothed herself with a veil to disguise herself, and then sat down at the entrance of En, which is on the road to Timnah, for she saw that through Shelah had now grown up, she had not been given to him as his wife.
Mm.
When Judah saw her, he thought she was a prostitute, for she had covered her face.
Oh boy, the plot thickens here. So she's not married off. She still doesn't have children in the name of her deceased husband, and then her father-in-law sees her. Okay. Let's see, 16 to the end of 20.
He turned to her by the road and said, "Please come, let me lie with you." For he did not know that she was his daughter-in-law. And she said, "What will you give me that you may lie with me?" He answered, "I will send you a young goat from the flock." And she said, "Will you give me a pledge as a deposit until
Mhm.
you send it?" He said, "What pledge shall I give you?" He said, "Your seal, your cord, and the staff that is in your hand." So he gave them to her, was intimate with her, and she conceived by him. Then she got up and left, and removed her veil, and put on her widow's clothing.
One more.
When Judah sent the young goat by his friend at the Adullamite
Mhm.
to get his pledge back, the woman was unable to find her.
Ruh-roh.
Hey, it was a stick.
It was a stick, but she also had his seal and his cord.
Yeah.
So these were things that, the men, um, they had to have, he couldn't say, "Put it on my American Express," So, um, but he wanted to honor his pledge and get his stuff back.
What an unbelievable man.
I know. Yikes. Yeah. Well, she kind of snuck, didn't
Yeah.
reveal who she was either, so she kind of manipulated the whole situation.
Yeah, it just strikes me as do that. I mean, if she
Yeah.
was an honorable woman to
Yeah.
begin with, okay, and all of a sudden she's that desperate, by custom, she's
Mm.
pushed that far.
Yeah.
You have broken your pledge to me.
Yeah. Yeah. Gotta take
So
care
I'm
of
gonna, I'm gonna,
take
I'm
care
gonna,
of things.
I'm gonna do something just as bad.
Mm. Well, this is his sons did not perform the levirate marriage so that she could have a son in her deceased husband's name.
Correct.
The next step up would be the father. That's the father-in-law. So,
She needed a son
yeah,
to take care of her in her old age. That's why it was so important.
yep. Yeah, that's the insurance policy, biblical insurance policy. So, yeah, it wasn't, I mean, when you think of, yeah, it wasn't kosher, yeah. But, you think of it in modern terms, nobody does that anymore, you know. Um, well,
Unless they're on Jerry Springer.
yeah. And the real father is, yeah, Maury Povich. Um, yeah. So things had to be done, and you kinda go up the line so that the, inheritance still comes through, to her and whatever child she has. Yes?
Well, I'm just wondering uh, in this time, um, had the family units,
Mhm.
and I am open to commentary. Anybody knows, but to have the family unit was uh, 30, 50, maybe 100, all living in an area. But just adjacent are other family units,
Mhm.
not of Yahweh's teaching. Uh, it's not like when we read after the Exodus,
Mhm.
where there was a couple of million Israelites all uh, trying to abide by Torah. That's not the case here. So the temptation and the seeing other people doing weird things with respect to what Yahweh wants, it's
It's a
Pagan
way
pagan
of
practices.
preserving the bloodline.
Mhm.
yeah. But next door, we say, well, why did she do this? Um, because she saw it from her neighbors. They were doing it too, or heard about it from neighbors.
Where's that?
That's what I was wondering if you've ever read any discussion that in this
No.
time, um, where Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, they're kind of moving
Mhm,
within from along the crescent. Now they finally settle in
mhm.
Canaan.
Canaan, yeah.
We know that Canaan is full of heathens.
Right, and so they were supposed to keep it within, the family, so to speak, within their tribe, but, it's pretty clear that what was expected when a woman has no children and her husband dies,
Hmm.
that a levirate marriage has to take place. An levirate marriage is where the brother of the deceased brother fulfills the commitment to give her children in the name of the deceased brother. So that's why she did that, not because she saw other people doing strange things.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yes.
because that was expected. That
And
was
then
expected.
how many years might have passed by where she waited and then state that this young man who
Mhm,
promised her had grown up
mhm.
and was of marriageable age,
Yeah,
but nothing.
yeah.
So a
Well,
promise was broken,
yeah,
a pledge for
that
power of
pledge was
eternity.
broken, yes, and also you gotta remember that, men can father children much longer than women can be mothers.
So she was not free to marry outside of that. Yeah.
No,
When she married into it, she
right.
was stuck with that family.
Yep, yep.
Oy vey.
Oy vey, yeah, I know.
Well, you
Oy.
better like your in-laws.
Yeah. Right, right. So she ran out of brothers-in-law, so she had to go up the chain, and she was pretty desperate because, like I said, you can only women only have so many years of childbearing, and so she had to get this done. And so she was pretty desperate in what she had to do, disguising herself as a prostitute, in order to trick, Yehuda give her children. Okay, so moving on. Let's see. You already read? Hmm?
I read
Okay.
already.
Okay. All right. Okay, so starting at 21. Okay. And he asked the men of that place, saying, where is the cult prostitute who was beside the way to Enaim? And they said, there was no cult prostitute in this place. And he returned to Yehuda and said, I have not found her. And the men of the place also said, there was no cult prostitute in this place. And Yehuda said, let her take them for herself, lest we become despised. For I sent this young goat, and you have not found her. And it came to be about 3 months after that Yehuda was informed, saying, Tamar, your daughter in law, has whored, and see, she has conceived by whoring. And Yehuda said, bring her out and let her be burned. And when she was brought out, she sent to her father in law, saying, by the man to whom these belong, I am pregnant. And she said, please examine whose these are, the seal and the cord and the staff. So she was smart hanging on to these things because she would have to explain if she became pregnant, who did it. She's got to prove who did it.
That was her blue dress.
Yeah, it was her blue dress, right? I did not. Okay. Now, in my version, it's speaking of a cult prostitute. A cult prostitute is a prostitute from pagan peoples. They served in pagan temples because part of their um, worship service is involving sexual relations with the parishioners. And so I guess this is where the poor box came in, how it started, the pushki, giving tithes and offerings and stuff. Um, So anyway, they assumed she was a cult prostitute, a pagan person. And you would think that Yehuda would not have his way with a woman within the tribe because that woman could point the finger at him and he would be guilty.
And
Hopefully they
subject to
Yeah,
a
right.
lot
The
of
same.
rocks.
Yeah, a lot of rocks, a rock concert on
hopefully
his
there
head.
wouldn't be prostitutes
Right,
separated.
right.
And that's where the influence would be. Tamar would have seen prostitutes in other cultures.
Hmm.
So that's where she got that idea
Right,
because, you know, hopefully there were prostitutes.
right.
in the
Yeah.
family.
Yeah, you don't really read about prostitutes within the tribe. It's always from a neighboring, people group. And also it says that she veiled herself to appear as a prostitute. In that culture, in pagan cultures, the prostitutes veiled themselves. In the Hebraic culture, the women that were clean and nice and holy, they veiled themselves. So it was a completely different thing. Plus the fact she didn't want anybody knowing who she was. She was disguising herself. So, okay. So now she's been discovered, she's showing, um, and I guess she's 3 months along, and Yehuda's said, we're gonna have to punish her for what she's been
Yeah.
doing.
Being burned to death.
Yeah, that's kind of harsh, yeah. And, here it is, his sons did not do their duty, and they pushed her. She was a woman on the edge,
But it would be the father who, for the back says earlier, it
Mhm.
says, hey, he said this to deceive her.
Right.
So I don't know what his grief was with her,
Yeah.
but he was breaking, he lied.
Mm,
And then the years go by and we kind of forgot about
whoops.
it. Well, somebody didn't forget about it.
Mhm. She
And
certainly
honorable.
I'm sorry, what?
He's not as
Oh,
honorable
no.
as we would like to think
No, no,
at all.
no, not at
There is
all.
none good.
There is none. No,
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 not
not one.
Well, and his
But he's
sons
showing
weren't
us the
either.
way.
Right.
So
Yeah.
like
Right, right. They did not fulfill their duty. So, okay. Next reader, 26 to the end of the chapter. Yes.
Judah recognized them and said, "She is more righteous than I am." Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Since I would not give her to my son, and he did sleep with her again. When the time came for her to give birth, there were twin boys in the womb. As she was giving birth, he put out his hand so that the midwife took a scarlet thread and tied it onto his wrist and said, "This one came out first." But when he drew back his hand, his brother came out. She said, "So this is how you have broken out." And his name was Perez. Then his brother, scarlet thread on his wrist, came out, and he was given the name Zerah.
But that had to be one heck of a birth.
Whoa.
I
Hiya.
pull it back.
Right.
You go first.
Yes, all out here.
Have you ever seen that? There was a photograph where this doctor was performing a C-section, and the baby's hand came out and grabbed onto his thumb. And yeah, and he was like, "Oh wow, this is a person. This is a real person." Yeah, reminds me of that. Yeah. Okay. Any comment? Right. Okay, so let's move on. All right, Genesis 39, starting at verse 1, go to the end of 5.
Now Joseph had been taken down to Egypt. Potiphar, an Egyptian officer of Pharaoh, the captain of the royal guard, brought him from the Ishmaelites who had taken him down there. The Lord was with Joseph, and he even though a slave, became a successful and prosperous man. He was in the house of his master. Now his master saw the Lord was with him, and that the Lord caused all that he did to prosper in his hand. So Joseph pleased Potiphar and found favor in his sight, and served him as his personal servant. He made Joseph overseer over his house, and put all that he owned in Joseph's charge. It happened that from the time that he made Joseph overseer in his house and put him in charge over all that he owned, that the Lord blessed the Egyptian's house.
Okay.
Is the mind continues.
Oh, okay.
So the Lord's blessing was on the home, house, and in the field.
Mhm. Okay. All right. So we're back to Yosef. We're done with Yehuda for now. So we know what kind of person he is. We know what kind of person, Reuven is. Um, so now we're getting back to Yosef, and he's been down there. Okay, so read from, let's see. Okay, so he
6.
was in, just a moment. Yeah. Okay, so Yosef's in Potiphar's house. Potiphar's like a big wig in Egypt, and Yosef has been doing pretty well. He found favor in the eyes of Potiphar, and he made him pretty much a jefe, el jefe, made him a chief over certain things in his home, and uh, and and then he was blessed. Potiphar was blessed simply because Yosef was there. And I'm sure Yosef did the best that he could for his master. Okay, starting at 6 to the end of 10.
So he left all his possessions in Joseph's care, and because he had him, he paid no attention to his affairs except for the food he ate. Now Joseph was well built and handsome as well. In time, the day came when his master's wife took a look at Joseph and said, "Sleep with me." But he refused, saying to his master's wife, "Look, because my master has me, he doesn't know what's going on in this house. He has put all his possessions in my charge. In this house, I am his equal. He hasn't withheld anything from me except yourself, because you are his wife. Now then could I, or how then could I do such a wicked thing and sin against God?"
Okay, so, oh, I'm sorry, one more.
But she kept pressing him day after day. Nevertheless, he didn't listen to her. He refused to sleep with her or even be with her.
Okay, good thing, Yosef. This could have been really a bad thing. Okay, and here, he says, "And how shall I do this great evil and sin against Elohim?" So he still had faith in his God. He didn't ad he didn't adopt the gods of Egypt, at least not that we know of. He's still, and he wouldn't have if he respects his own God, because his own God is the only God in his eyes. Okay. All
And the
right.
fact that she continued to speak to him day
Mhm.
after day,
Yeah.
she was probably a very influential woman.
Oh,
And I could see where she was to tempt him by saying, I can open doors for you.
Oh,
You give me what I want,
right.
I'll do favors for you.
Building
And,
her own.
and, and Joseph could have fell for that,
Hmm.
missed out completely, and lost everything. But because
Right.
he did, God had a bigger and better.
Hmm. So I'm wondering also, the thought comes to mind that maybe it wasn't all that she was like, hubba hubba, this guy looks really good, and I'm gonna have my way with him. And, you know, and like you were saying, she's influential and can give him lots of favors. But what if he has won so much favor in Potiphar's eyes that maybe there's jealousy and she wants to get rid of him? How best to get rid of him but accuse him or, you know, tempt him to do the dirty deed with her, and that's one way of getting rid of him. I don't know. It doesn't say, but he won a lot of favor with Potiphar, and maybe she could have been jealous. I
And
don't
she had, what gets me is
Mhm.
other people in this household had to be kind of aware of it. He didn't
Yeah.
even want to be around her.
Yeah.
I mean, it flat out says it, no,
Right.
you're on over here.
Right.
So, and I mean, people talk.
Yeah, yeah. The walls have ears.
Yeah.
The walls have ears.
Mhm.
So I don't
Yeah.
think it was that big of a secret, except
Yeah, that's true.
he wants to tip the boss off.
I know. Okay, where are we? Okay. So
I think
11.
11.
Okay. 11. You just read, right? Oh, she just read.
Right.
Okay. So 11 to the end of 15.
11 to what again?
End of 15.
End of-
Yeah, I'm trying to take like 5 verses.
Let's see. Then it happened one day that Joseph went into his house to attend to his duties, and none of the men of the household was there in the house. She caught Joseph by his outer robe, saying, "Lie with me." But he left his robe in her hand and ran and got outside the house. When she saw that she had left his robe within her hand and run outside, she called to the men of the household and said to them, "Look at this. Your master has brought a Hebrew into the house to mock and insult us. He came to me to lie with me, and I screamed. He heard me screaming. He left the robe with me and ran outside the house." So she left Joseph's outer robe beside her until his master
Wow.
came. Okay.
So, yeah, yeah. Okay, and another scenario, she has a problem with him being Hebrew, so maybe she wants him out of the house anyway. Okay, lots of things could be happening here. All right. Next reader, 17, go to the end of the chapter.
Then she said to him, "This Hebrew slave you brought us came in to make a fool of me. But when I yelled out, he left his robe with me and fled outside. When his master heard what his wife said, as she showed him, 'Here's what your slave did to me,' he became furious. Joseph's master took him and put him in prison, in the place where the king's prisoners were kept. And there he was in prison. But Adonai was with Joseph, showing him grace and giving him favor in the sight of the prison warden. The prison warden made Joseph supervisor of all the prisoners in the prison, so that whatever they did there, he was in charge of it. The prison warden paid no attention to anything Joseph did, because Adonai was with him, and whatever he did, Adonai prospered.
Wow.
I can't
Even
go anywhere without rising to the top.
yeah, I know. I know. I know, even in prison. Oh my goodness. Okay. All right. That's common. Okay, next
I wonder
chapter.
if that's a misprint.
What?
Adonai prospered. How does Adonai prosper any more than he? I would
And
have thought that Joseph prospered.
let me see.
That the Lord made to prosper.
Okay, prison warden paid no attention to anything Yosef did because Adonai is with him, and whatever he did, Adonai prospered. He prospered him.
Okay.
It wasn't Adonai prospered, it was whatever he did, Adonai prospered. Through it.
Version.
I think I still have David's little
So,
Bible.
You could phrase it, Adonai blessed.
Yeah, yeah. Whatever he did, Adonai blessed. Mhm.
Him. Adonai
Joseph.
prospered him.
Yeah,
Adonai prospered
And we-
whatever
we-
Joseph
we
did.
need an
Yeah.
object.
it's
Not
there.
only Joseph
Okay,
prospered, but
English class,
everybody,
we are not.
everybody Joseph was associated with prospered too.
Yeah.
Potiphar prospered. So Adonai prospered
Mhm.
whatever Joseph did
Right,
in there, which is what should happen
Right,
with us. I know
exactly.
it happens at my work. My work prospers.
I'm not too good at implied.
Well, it says,
object.
and whatever he did, Adonai prospered. So that's the object right
Sorry.
there.
Now,
I wonder what happened to Potiphar's house now that Joseph's, because I don't recall any
Yeah.
mention of what's going on from then on. Potiphar just kind of drops off
Mm,
in the storyline.
yeah.
Well,
Hmm.
I wonder if Potiphar kind of had his doubts because he could have had Joseph killed.
Yeah.
That's true.
He sent him to prison instead.
Mhm.
So was this the first time his wife had done something like
Oh,
this?
you never know.
Or, you know,
Mhm.
did he have reason, you know, and he's not going to take Joseph's word over his wife's word
Right,
for the public's sake because Joseph's a slave,
right.
and that would bring dishonor on his house to not leave his wife.
Mhm.
But
And he wants to shut his wife up.
right,
So
he puts on the hush.
okay,
hush,
okay, jail.
you know,
Right.
as long as Joseph's was there, Potiphar
Mhm.
was prospering. Now
Yeah.
the source of the prospering is being removed.
Mm.
So the
Yeah.
whole house could have collapsed.
Thanks a lot.
It's your okay. We're now in chapter 40.
Yes.
Verse 1. Okay. And is it my turn? I guess.
Mhm.
All right. And after these events, it came to be that the cupbearer and the baker of the sovereign of Mitzrayim sinned against their master, the sovereign of Mitzrayim. And Pharaoh was wroth with his two officers, the chief cupbearer and the chief baker. So he put them in confinement in the house of the captain of the guard, in the prison, the place where Joseph was a prisoner. And the captain of the guard put Joseph in charge of them, and he served them. So they were in confinement for some time. Then the cupbearer and the baker of the sovereign of Israel, who were confined in the prison, dreamed a dream, both of them, each man's dream in one night, and each man's dream with its own interpretation. Okay, the plot is thickening. All right, next reader from 6 to the end of 10.
When Joseph came to them the next morning, he saw that they were dejected. So he asked Pharaoh's officials who were in custody with him in his master's house, why are your faces so sad today? We both had dreams, they answered, but there is no one to interpret them. Then Joseph said to them, do not interpretations belong to God? Tell me your dreams. So the chief cupbearer told Joseph his dream. He said to him, in my dream, I saw a vine in front of me, and on the vine were 3 branches. As soon as it budded, it and its clusters ripened into grapes.
Okay, so dreams sound pretty good so far. Next reader, 11 to the end of.
In there. I'll just keep going. I will. 11. Okay. Now the Pharaoh's cup was in my hand, and I took the grapes and squeezed them into Pharaoh's cup, and I placed the cup in Pharaoh's kingdom. But Joseph said to him, this is the interpretation of it. The 3 branches represent 3 days. Within 3 more days, Pharaoh will lift up your head, present you in public, and restore you to your position. And you will again put the Pharaoh's cup into his hand, just as you did when you were his cupbearer. Only think of me when it goes well with you. Please show me kindness by mentioning me to the Pharaoh in this house.
Get me out.
For in fact, I was stolen from and used in awful force, and each year I have done nothing for which they should put me in the dungeon.
Okay, so he interprets the cupbearer's dream and says, okay, I interpreted your dream. Now you got to do me a favor. Put in a good word for me with the Pharaoh. Okay. Next reader, 16 through the end of 19.
When the chief baker saw that the interpretation was favorable, he said to Joseph, I too saw in my dream there were 3 baskets of white bread on my head. In the uppermost basket there were all kinds of baked goods for Pharaoh, but the birds ate them out of the basket I hid. Joseph answered, here is its interpretation. The 3 baskets are 3 days. Within 3 days, Pharaoh will lift up your head from off you. He will hang you on a tree, and the birds will eat your flesh off of you.
So it didn't go too well with the baker.
I'm going to ask him for a dream
How can you
interpretation.
bake something so
Yeah.
bad? Pharaoh.
You've never burnt toast?
Yeah, I have.
I broke a tooth on a piece.
Yeah. Okay.
Muffins are bad.
Do
You know, I mean,
you know the Muffin Man? Okay, let's finish this. And on the 3rd day, Pharaoh's birthday, it came to be that he made a feast for all his servants. And he lifted up the head of the chief cupbearer and of the chief baker among his servants. And he restored the chief cupbearer to his post of cupbearer again, and he placed the cup in Pharaoh's hand. But he hanged the chief baker, as Joseph had interpreted to them. And the chief cupbearer did not remember Joseph, but forgot him. Ruh-roh. Okay, so we know how it ends, but that's going to be for next time. Any thoughts on the cupbearer and the baker?
I still wonder what he baked. So it's just, well, I mean, you think about it. Here's the Pharaoh, and just you're out of here, and hey, don't spill any more wine on me. You
Yeah.
get your job back. You know, I mean,
It was supposed to be raisin bread, but they weren't raisins.
Oh, no.
that is
Yeah, he is. We're assuming that their infractions had something to do with their position. What if it was something else?
one was accused of selling off wine on the side.
Yeah.
The other guy was taking the wheat.
Yeah.
doing something else with it.
Or maybe he was hanging out with Potiphar's wife. No. I knew she had to be in there again. Okay, so it doesn't say what exactly they did, but one of them was, you know, reinstated, and the other is not baking cookies anymore. Okay, real good. All right, so that's the reading for tonight, and I'm glad you all were able to join us and follow along. Um, and so please join us next week, Wednesday night, at 6:30 Central. And oh, that's the day before. It's the day. Oh, okay. It's the seventh night of Hanukkah. So, and we do have our Hanukkah celebration. Um, Hanukkah starts this Thursday at sundown. So, we're going to be lighting our Hanukkahs. I want to remind everybody that if you need candles or a Hanukkah for Hanukkah, other gift, we have those in the TLC Blessings gift shop, and we're open Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday from 1 to 6. So if you need anything, come and get your gifts, and at the time. Okay, well, thank you for joining us, and I look forward to seeing you next week, same channel, same time, and same yeah, and we're gonna see what happens to Yosef. And also join us for our Sabbath service on Saturdays at 1 p.m. All right, until then, shalom, shalom.